Okay, stop scrolling for a second. Seriously, put the phone down. Well, keep it to listen to this, but just stop refreshing the feed. Because if you have been anywhere near a screen in the last, 6 hours, you are seeing one headline just dominating absolutely everything. It's Friday, January 30, 2026, and Don Lemon has been arrested.
It is the only thing anyone is talking about. It's trending #1 on X, it's all over the legacy networks, and the hot takes are just, they're flying faster than we can even track them.
Exactly. And that is why we really need to hit the pause button.
Yeah.
Right now. Because everyone out there is arguing about Don Lemon, the celebrity. Was he arrogant? Is this a publicity stunt? Was he framed? But we're doing something different today. We are looking at the mechanics of this, because the source material we're digging into suggests this isn't just about a celebrity scandal. It's a systemic stress test for independent media.
That's exactly the right framing. The source we're working with today is a really comprehensive analysis. It's titled The Chilling Effect. And it uses this specific arrest as a jumping off point to talk about something much, much bigger. The legal traps waiting for creators, the financial fragility of independent journalism, and this is the part that might keep you up at night, the psychological slide toward authoritarianism.
Yeah, it gets pretty heavy. There's a whole section in there comparing 2026 America to 1939 Germany, which, look, I want to be skeptical about that because it feels like the ultimate internet argument cliche, but the text actually makes a frighteningly compelling case.
It does, largely because it focuses on the how rather than just the what. But before we get into the history books, we have to ground everyone in what actually happened today, because the headline is a little misleading. Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles, yes, but the quote-unquote crime didn't happen in LA, and it didn't happen today.
All right, we have to rewind the clock. About 2 weeks, this all goes back to January 18th in St. Paul, Minnesota. There was a protest inside a church service. It got loud, it was disruptive, and yeah, it was chaotic.
Correct. And Lemon was there. Now, his camp is very clear on this. They're saying, I was there as a journalist. I was documenting the disruption for my independent platform. He had his phone out. He was filming. He was doing the job. But the prosecutors in Minnesota are taking a very, very different angle. Their argument is that by being there, embedded with the disruptors, he wasn't just watching the event. He was part of it.
And that distinction.
Yeah.
That is the whole ballgame. Because if the state can't or won't distinguish between the reporter covering the riot and
the rioter breaking the window, then we have a massive problem on our hands.
It creates a legal gray zone that just swallows independent journalism whole. So let's unpack that. I want to move away from Lemon personally because, frankly, he can afford the lawyers.
Yeah.
I want to look at this concept the source material introduces. It's called journalism as participation. This feels like a real shift in how the law is being applied.
It is a shift. The source argues that we're seeing a strategic blurring of lines by the state. I mean, historically, if you had a press pass from a major network, you were an observer, a fly on the wall. You stood behind the police tape. But in the era of independent media where, you probably get more news from TikTok or YouTube than from CNN, that wall is gone.
Okay, so let's break that down for someone who might be a creator themselves. Say I'm a YouTuber. I go to a protest to film content because that's my beat. I don't work for the New York Times. I just have my channel and, my Patreon. What is this buffer the source talks about? And when I have it?
The institutional buffer is basically the armor that legacy media wears. Think about a CNN field reporter. Before they even step foot at a protest, there's this massive machine working for them. They have a legal department on retainer. They have credentialing deals with the police department. They likely have a producer who has already called the police liaison to say, hey, just so you know, our crew is going to be on the corner of 5th and Main.
So the police know them. They see the van, they see the big camera, and they categorize them as professional media.
Yeah.
They're part of the ecosystem.
Exactly. They're institutional. But you, the independent creator, you are just a person with a phone. You look exactly like the protesters. You are standing next to them, moving with them. You don't have the van. You don't have the lanyard that the police chief recognizes.
And that leads to this terrifying phrase in the text, proximity plus documentation.
That's the evidence trap. In the absence of that institutional armor, the prosecution looks at the raw footage. They see you standing next to someone breaking a law, maybe trespassing, maybe disrupting a service. You're filming it. Maybe you're even narrating it with some excitement because, you're trying to engage your audience. The prosecutor argues, you aren't documenting this crime. You are amplifying it. Your presence is encouraging the actor. Therefore, proximity plus documentation equals coordination.
That is wild.
Right.
It basically implies that the act of witnessing a crime makes you an accessory, provided you have a camera and an audience.
If you are independent, yes. That is the legal theory being tested right here with the Lemon arrest. And think about the incentives. If you're a prosecutor and you want to shut down a disruptive movement, taking out the people broadcasting it is a very effective tactic. You cut the feed, you kill the momentum.
Which brings us right to the title of the source material, the chilling effect. I feel like people use this phrase a lot in op-eds without really nailing down what it means. It's not that the government bans journalism.
Right.
They aren't passing a law saying you can't film.
No, and that's a crucial misconception. In a democracy, even a struggling one, you rarely see a law that says reporting is illegal. That's too clumsy. It looks too much like a dictatorship. A chilling effect is market-based. It's all about risk calculation.
It's economics.
Precisely. If I'm an independent journalist and I see Don Lemon get arrested, a guy with resources, fame, connections, I have to do a quick calculation, is getting this footage worth a federal indictment? Is it worth a night in jail? Is it worth losing my camera?
And for 99% of people, the answer is hell no. I'm not going to jail for a vlog.
Right, so you stay home, you don't live stream the protest. Or if you do go, you stay on the sidewalk 3 blocks away, where you can't really see what's happening. The news doesn't get covered, not because it was banned, but because the personal cost of covering it became too high. That is the chill. It's the silence that happens when everyone decides it's just not worth the trouble.
So the source material then transitions from this physical risk, getting arrested, to the aftermath.
Yeah.
And it uses this phrase that I think is just so powerful. The process is the punishment.
This is one of the most important concepts for independent creators to understand. We tend to think justice is about the verdict. We watch movies where it's all about the jury saying guilty or not guilty. But for the state, the verdict is almost irrelevant. The punishment begins the moment the handcuffs click.
Because of the money.
Financial asymmetry, yeah. Let's go back to our CNN versus independent comparison. If a CNN reporter gets arrested, Turner Broadcasting's legal team handles it. It's a line item in a multi-billion-dollar budget. They might even use the footage for a promo reel to show how edgy they are.
For them, it's content. For the independent creator,
It's ruin. The source breaks down the costs vividly. A federal defense attorney, you were looking at a $50,000 retainer just to say hello, then you have bail. Then you have the fact that you can't work because you're in court hearings.
And the source mentioned something I hadn't even thought of, which honestly scared me the most: equipment seizure.
That's the killer. Your laptop, your cameras, your hard drives, your phone, those are all evidence now. They go into an impound locker. You might not see them for 6 months, maybe a year. If you're a creator, that is your factory. The state has effectively seized your means of production. You're out of business. Instantly.
So you're silenced without a judge ever banging a gavel. You're silenced because your gear is in a bag in a basement somewhere.
That is de facto suppression. They don't need to convict you to stop you. They just need to grind you down until you run out of money or will.
It feels incredibly cynical. But I guess that's the point. It's a feature, not a bug.
And it's selective. That's the other weapon. The source calls it selective enforcement. Look, there are protests every day. Not everyone gets arrested. And when you pick a high-profile target like Lemon, or maybe a specific YouTuber who has been critical of the administration, you're sending a signal to the herd.
It's a flare gun.
It says, this is the line, cross it, and we will wreck your finances.
Okay.
It creates a psychological environment where everyone self-censors to avoid being the next target. You start asking yourself, is this tweet worth my house? Is this video worth my savings?
Okay, speaking of psychological environments, we need to tackle the third section of this deep dive. The source material pivots to a historical comparison. And I'll be honest, usually when I see a text compare modern America to Germany in 1939, I roll my eyes. It feels like lazy analysis. Everyone I don't like is Hitler. It just shuts down the conversation.
I had the exact same reaction initially. It usually signals that the author has run out of good arguments, but to the source's credit, it starts with a massive correction. It basically says, okay, put your pitchforks down. America in 2026 is not Nazi Germany.
It lists the reasons why, which I think is important to reiterate so people don't think we're being alarmist. We are not a dictatorship.
No. 1939, Germany was a totalitarian state at war. They had spent a decade systematically dismantling unions, opposition parties, the press. We have contested elections. We have independent courts, which, by the way, is where Lemon is going to fight this. We have what the source calls institutional pluralism.
Which is just a fancy way of saying states' rights, right?
Basically, if the feds try to do something crazy, California or Texas can sue them. There's friction in our system that didn't exist in 1939 Germany. So the destination isn't the same. We are not there.
But the path might have some similarities.
That's the argument. The source says, don't look at the result, look at the mechanisms. The tactics used to slide from democracy to authoritarianism are surprisingly consistent across history. And we are seeing echoes of those tactics right now.
One of them is delegitimization.
Right. This is how you prep the public. You don't start by arresting reporters. You start by calling them enemies. You reframe independent journalism not as a watchdog, but as subversion. If you can convince the public that these YouTubers and streamers are actually dangerous or unpatriotic or chaos agents, then nobody cares when they get arrested.
You lower the social cost of hurting them. You make it so the public just says, well, they deserved it.
Exactly. And then you have the blurring of lines, which we already talked about. If you redefine protest as criminal conspiracy or domestic terror, then reporting on it becomes aiding and abetting. It's a logic trap. You can't cover the event without legally becoming part of the event.
And the third mechanism is chilling by example, which brings us right back to Don Lemon.
It's the public spectacle of punishment. You need a few high-profile heads on spikes to keep everyone else in line. It's theatrical.
This leads us to the part of the source material that, for me, actually hit the hardest. It moves away from the legal tactics and gets into our heads, the psychology of the slide.
This is the most insightful part of the whole document, in my opinion. The source argues that authoritarianism isn't something that's just imposed from the top down. It's something that's accepted step by step from the bottom up. People don't wake up and choose oppression. They walk a psychological pathway that leads them there.
And the source maps out this pathway. Step 1 is fear and uncertainty.
Always starts there. It's 2026, automation is eating jobs, the climate is weird, demographics are shifting, people feel like the world is disorderly, and when people are scared, they crave order. They crave stability more than they crave liberty.
Which leads to step 2, scapegoating.
Fear is uncomfortable. You want a simple reason for it. So you find a culprit. It's the immigrants. It's the elites. It's the independent media stirring up trouble. It's so much easier to blame a group than to understand complex economic forces.
Then comes step 3, tribal identity.
This is where politics stops being about tax rates or zoning laws and becomes about who you are. It's us versus them. And once you're in that tribal mindset, you stop viewing the other side as opponents and start seeing them as existential threats.
And that triggers step 4, which I think is just rampant right now. Information capture.
This is the echo chamber effect, but weaponized. You stop trusting any fact that makes your tribe look bad. You only consume media that affirms your worldview. If your side arrests the journalist, you just assume the journalist must be a criminal. You don't verify it, you just feel it.
And finally, the trade-off.
This is the end of the line. The public accepts fewer rights in exchange for the feeling of safety. The logic becomes, I don't mind if the press is silenced as long as my side is the one doing the silencing.
The source has this quote: "The slope is psychological and social before it is legal." That really stuck with me. The laws change after we've already changed our minds.
It's profound. We think the courts protect us, but the source is saying that the courts are just a lagging indicator of where our heads are at. If society stops valuing free speech, the laws protecting it will eventually just dissolve.
So that's a pretty heavy diagnosis. We've got the legal traps, the financial ruin, the historical echoes, and the psychological slide. If we stop the episode here, everyone is going to go to bed depressed. But the source does offer some actual practical takeaways. It's not just a doom scroll.
No, it's actually quite constructive at the end. It splits the advice into 2 buckets: what creators need to do and what the rest of us need to do.
Okay, let's start with the creators. If you're listening to this and you document protests, or you run a commentary channel, or you're just thinking about live streaming something crazy you see, the advice is disciplined documentation.
Yeah, the days of gonzo journalism just running in with an iPhone and vibing are over. That is too dangerous now. If you want to survive this legal environment, you need protocols.
Like what does that actually look like on the ground?
Clear role identification. Wear a press badge. Even if you made it yourself, wear it. Make it big. Make it visible. You need to signal to everyone, police and protesters, that you are an observer, not a participant.
And separation.
Crucial. You cannot be chanting slogans 1 minute and claiming to be a neutral reporter the next. The source is very firm on this. You have to choose a lane. Also, operational security. Have your footage backing up to the cloud in real time. If they seize your phone, the footage should already be on a server in another state. And have a legal support plan before you leave the house. Write the number of a lawyer on your arm with a Sharpie. It sounds paranoid, but it's actually just professional.
What about for the rest of us, the audience? The people who aren't out there with cameras but are watching this all happen?
We have the harder job, actually. We have to care about the boring stuff.
The boring stuff.
Process safeguards, warrants, arraignment hearings, access to counsel. These are the unsexy parts of democracy. They aren't fun to tweet about. You don't get viral engagement discussing bail reform. But the source argues they are the firewall. When we see procedural norms get violated, even against people we don't like, we have to make noise.
That's the key phrase right there. Even against people we don't like.
That is the litmus test. The source talks about solidarity. History teaches us that crackdowns work by isolating groups. They come for the radicals first because nobody wants to defend the radicals. Then they come for the nuisances. Then they come for the critics.
It's easy to defend the reporter who agrees with your politics. It is really, really hard to defend the rights of the guy who annoys you.
But if you don't defend the buffer for him, the buffer won't be there for you. It's that simple. We have to value the right to speak more than we hate the speaker.
So we've unpacked a lot. The arrest of Don Lemon is really just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it is this massive shift in how independent media is treated, how the state exerts pressure, and how we, psychologically, are reacting to it all.
It's a systemic stress test, and we are currently taking the test.
Before we wrap up, there's one final concept from the source material that I think we need to leave you with. It's about normalization.
This is the warning. The source argues that in these historical shifts, whether it's the erosion of privacy or the crackdown on press or the rise of authoritarianism, the biggest change isn't the first shock. It's not today.
Today we're shocked. This feels big.
Right. Today, Don Lemon's arrest is a crisis. We're all talking about it. But the real danger comes when the third arrest happens, or the 10th, or the 50th.
When we stop clicking.
When it becomes background noise, when you scroll past the headline, journalist arrested, and you don't even pause because it just feels like another Tuesday.
That's the chilling effect becoming permanent. That is when the battle is lost.
Exactly. The system relies on our exhaustion. It relies on us getting bored. It relies on us adapting to the new normal.
So here is the thought to take with you. Watch your own reaction over the next few months. If this keeps happening, pay attention to how you feel. Do you stay angry? Do you stay curious? Or do you just check out? Because that moment, the moment you shrug, is when the slide becomes irreversible.
Stay vigilant. Don't let the shock wear off.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It was a heavy one, but an important one. We'll be tracking this story as it develops. Until next time, stay safe out there.